Hello everyone, I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to this special webinar today, developing a strategic plan to implement multiple services in your accountancy firm. I hope you're having a great day and that you enjoy this webinar with us today. Also, welcome to the people who are viewing live on Facebook. If you have any questions, I'll have to ask you to send me an email, please, peter@essbiztools.com.au. For those of you who are online on this webinar, you can type in your questions and I will answer them later during the webinar. So welcome, and we will look at getting everything underway for you. I'll just bring that. So developing a strategic plan to implement multiple services. Let's look at the trends in the accountancy industry because there's been a lot of changes of late. The Australian Financial Review published their annual survey on the top 100 accounting firms last week. They reported the top 100 firms, some of which are users of ESS BIZTOOLS, have continued their expansion beyond traditional accounting and taxation work. Now, this particular survey did not include the big four firms, but it indicated the top 100 accounting firms were moving into higher margin consulting services. And they were also moving into outsourcing chief financial officer services. What are the trends in your accountancy business? Could I ask you just to consider them for a moment and perhaps write them down? Where do you see your accountancy business going in 2020? Are you going to remain exactly the same as you have been this year? Or are you going to make changes? Yesterday, the Financial Review ran a very interesting article. Automation will force accountants to reinvent their roles. The headline read. I thought I've got to read this before I do this webinar today. So the article quotes Steve Vamos, the CEO of Xero, who has made some very interesting comments. In fact, I couldn't say it any better, and many of the things I've been saying for the last 20 years. Technology will snap up most of the work from accountants, Vamos says, in the coming few decades. Accountants should seize the opportunity to reinvent rather than cower from the transformation. And I heartily agree. I think there's a lot more work that accountants can do, but you need to realize that there are technology changes which are going to significantly affect the traditional role that you've had. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to free up a lot of work potential in your firms. There is more work created by virtue of the idea that a small business needs a coach, Vamos said. A coach for a small business. And in the article, Vamos has referred to the growth in fitness centers and the personal coaches in fitness centers over the last 20 to 30 years. It's been phenomenal. I even go to one. There's a pathway that many are taking and many more can take relative to seeing your role as being the chief financial officer, mentor or coach to your clients. You can pick whichever terminology you're comfortable with. Accountants should use their forensic knowledge of the books, the business, to spot issues and opportunities that a small business owner might be too preoccupied to see for themselves. I think that's a very important statement that Vamos has made. At one part of my career, I was the chief financial officer and company secretary of a listed public company. And I can assure you, I had to worry about a whole range of issues well beyond the profit and loss account and balance sheet and the tax return. It's all about analysing data, is what Vamos said, and then providing strategic advice, coaching and mentoring, how to use the results from that data analysis task. I hope this is exciting you on the type of work that you might like to consider. And then he made this comment: people who don't change are going to be more at risk from change than those who embrace it. Pardon me. People who don't change are going to be more at risk from change than those who don't embrace it. I'm going to write that on our whiteboards around in the office. I suggest that you do also. Because you'll have some doubting Thomases, some people that say nothing's changed, but I'd like you to refer back. What was your reaction to the Deloitte report when they produced it about 7 years ago, talking about digital disruption and the effect that it was likely to have on all sorts of businesses, including accountants? I know there were some people that doubted whether that would occur, but look around you now. It's happening everywhere. So where do you start? People ring me and say, where do you start? Well, within ESS BIZTOOLS product packages, we suggest you start with your current clients. Don't go thinking about future clients at this stage. That will all come in time. But you need to start this journey with your current clients. Who are they? What industry are they in? Who are their customers? Who are their suppliers? Do you understand their profit and loss account and balance sheet beyond the typed accounts? That was a question that I heard a small business operator, who was also a farmer, put to an accountant in a Queensland regional town some years ago. And he said, I want you to know more about my business than what's just in the profit and loss account and balance sheet. So the challenge is to be able to go in depth into the business, to analyze a whole range of matters. So how do your clients appear to their peers? How do they line up? Because businesses like to know this information. They know that you're acting for other people in the same industry. In some cases, they're competitors. You've got to be careful. You're not going to disclose confidential information, of course. But you could look at benchmarking and using some official benchmarking tools like benchmarking.com.au. Are profit and loss accounts prepared for each individual activity, or are you lumping them all together into one profit and loss account? Those of you who have participated in other webinars that I've presented will know that that is not a high achievement on my list. I don't like consolidated profit and loss accounts, and I don't think you should either. And your clients should hate them because they don't disclose any meaningful information for the client. If they've got separate business activities, please prepare for them separate profit and loss accounts for each of those activities so that the person responsible for that particular activity can receive their profit and loss account and see how they're performing, and then their KPIs, so that they can have a better understanding of what's going on in the activity that they are responsible for. I've talked about benchmarks, so I'll move on from there. I think you need to prepare yourself that your firm is going to be offering business advisory services or business improvement services or whatever other name you want to give to it. But it's really offering a broader range of professional services as if you were your individual clients Chief Financial Officer. I see the two things joined together. You will be offering a virtual CFO service. Use the communications, use the technology, and use the software that we now have to be able to offer these types of services. Survey the partners and team who is interested in offering consulting services. In my experience, working with quite a number of firms on this as we go through this process, most of your accounting team will put up their hands. I'll be surprised if you don't get 100% initially. But then after they've worked a little way through the process, and I'm going to take you through that today as we look at the strategic planning for how you go about introducing these services. Some of them will waver. Some will say, I've got other responsibilities. I can't really sit down and be reading the financial review so I'm abreast with what's happening, or reading industry journals so I clearly know what's happening in the manufacturing industry, because I'm going to become an expert in that industry from a financial point of view. So some of them will pull out, but in my experience, around 70% of your accounting team will give you a commitment that they are interested in this work. And that's great. You've got some team members who are interested in developing their skills as consultants. And they are different to undertaking the tax return work. Survey selection of clients. And in our system, we have some promo forms for you to utilize to have a conversation with your client. Have a cup of coffee. Don't really give the client the questionnaire to fill in. I'd ask them the questions, you fill it in later, but get some feedback from them. What are they really looking for in 2020? Incidentally, tomorrow we have a special webinar that was originally targeted at small businesses and medium-sized enterprises, but we've now added accountants to the invitation list because tomorrow we're celebrating Black Friday. That's the reason I've got a black shirt on today as we lead in to Black Friday. And we're going to talk more about that later on. We've got a big celebration on tomorrow in our webinar. And group your clients into industry groups. So you've got all your cane farmers together and your manufacturers together and your doctors together and your medical specialists together. So you can do some comparisons and you can look then at developing individual expertise. We've developed an SME needs analysis, which will help you to have a conversation with your clients as to the type of services they might like to receive from you. So you could practice that. So it gives you an idea what to talk to your clients about. So getting organized, Chief Financial Officer services. We've got a full product package which analyzes what's included in Chief Financial Officer services, which will help you to be able to gear up. We have a balanced scorecard questionnaire. I know people have got various views on balanced scorecards. I think the best use of them is to undertake a balanced scorecard survey of your team at the very beginning of this process of coming to grips with what business advisory services is all about, and then do another balanced scorecard appraisal in about 3 months' time, hopefully after you've gone down the path of implementing business advisory services, and then do another one 3 months later, just to gauge, hopefully, what improvement there's been in your team's assessment of how things are going within your firm. I think it's a good idea to ultimately appoint a client services officer, someone who's going to have a job of, or part-time job of looking at what services clients might be interested in, looking at organizing seminars or webinars, making sure there's promotional material going onto your website and through social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. It's all part of the package. Incidentally, I noticed in the Commonwealth Bank's report on the accounting industry earlier in the year that they nominated social media as being the most important activity that accountants were saying they were going to do in the next 12 months. That's the firms that they surveyed. What are you doing on social media in your firm? Product champions. I think this is one of the most important commitments that a firm needs to make if you are going to really implement business advisory services for your clients. Outstanding business advisory services. You need to have a champion on utilizing products like Plan Guru so that you can prepare budgets, cash flow forecasts, and projected balance sheets. You're expert on business plans. You're expert on succession planning. You're expert on debtors management. Your personal property securities register expert, and so on. They're your champions. It's not a lifetime sentence, but get them involved at the beginning so that if a client comes in and they've got a personal property securities register issue, they can be introduced to your expert, your champion. And then we need industry champions. There are some firms around Australia that have done this very well. They have embraced industries, whether they're merino wool growing, beef cattle, cotton industry, crop farming, and become experts in those industries. What are the industries that your clients participate in? Are they sugarcane farming? Are they manufacturing? Are they medical service practitioners? Are they pharmacies? Are they retail? And can you dissect the retail into components, fast food as compared to luxury goods and so on? And then go through and try to allocate one person who becomes the champion for each of those. Now, I think in most firms, you will find you've got 6 to 10 major industry groups. And some of your people may be wearing a couple of hats. But move them around in a year or so's time so they develop skills in other areas. And your team should be encouraged to develop their personal plan so they can have a checklist to see how they're going. And I'd be suggesting that one of the partners or an external mentor or facilitator that you may appoint in this whole process should be mentoring these champions and both products and industries to make sure that they're going to implement their personal plan. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Let's look at team training, because when you go through and start establishing the strategic strategies that you need to implement these services, you've got to have a big item called team training. And part of that's going to be quality assurance. It's no different to any other of your traditional accounting work. I expect that sooner or later the Institute and the CPA will catch up on this delivery of external services, whereas a lot of their material at this stage is on annual accounts, audit, insolvency, and taxation. I'd like to see the professional bodies become more forthright in their advocacy of accountants to prepare clients for a whole range of business activities rather than just the very narrow annual accounts, tax returns, audits. So quality assurance is going to be important. There will need to be an ongoing training program that's put in place to make sure that the champions are kept up to date, are familiar, and that they then brief other members of your team. If you depends how big your firm is, of course. If there's only 2 or 3 of you, well, it's going to be a job that's got to get allocated out. But some of you will be part of firms that have got 20, 30, 40, 100 staff. It's very important that the knowledge that someone starts to develop about the manufacturing industry, whether it's steel fabrication or timber fabrication or whatever, shares that knowledge with others. That's part of the training program, special training program for product champions and industry champions. But also leadership. Because one of the very important things that happens in consultancy work is that an accountant at a fairly young age, to what most of them currently are when they get involved in face-to-face dealings with clients, are probably going to be having those face-to-face dealings a lot earlier, maybe even before they've finished their PY or their CPA. I think it's very important, therefore, that you utilize the leadership material that's within this training program to get a firm ready to deliver business advisory services so that they understand where they fit in the overall scheme of things in dealing with the client, because a very young accountant could be dealing with the CEO of the business on some aspects. So they need to understand leadership and some humility at times. Marketing, very important part of the strategic plan to introduce business advisory services. Discuss a strategy. Perhaps you're going to need to engage an external marketing advisor. Social media, as I referred to earlier, was nominated in the Commonwealth Bank Review as being the #1 priority area. So what's your firm doing on social media? Webinars and seminars are still, I think, the best marketing tool for accountants. Someone needs to develop a program, make sure it's promoted to your clients on your website, through social media, and through the local media in your area. And don't forget the free newspapers that are in the major cities. Your website, is it up to date? I checked out a website the other day for a promotional organisation in a capital city, and it's the Australian organisation. And they were talking about their conference in December. Only problem was, it was December 2018. Hello, we're just about to go into December 2019. There hadn't been anything new placed on that website in a 12-month period, or in fact, a 12.5-month period. Don't let your accounting firm's website be treated the same way. It doesn't give a great impression of that organisation. You need articles there. You need fresh articles. You need to be continually reviewing the material. Media releases I've mentioned. Personal presentations. I think the key to being able to deliver business advisory services is that you are going to be developing industry champions. And that industry champions then's got to be prepared to volunteer to make a presentation on a financial impact on the pharmaceutical industry of some decision that's been made, probably by government, and be able to stand up and talk to representatives of the pharmaceutical industry, or to beef graziers about some change in law that's occurred, or just generally what's happening in their industry and how an accountant can help them to run a better business. Who's going to do that? And this all needs to be taken into account in planning what you're going to do. And then we come to one of the big questions in trying to develop strategies for business advisory services. What products or services is your firm going to deliver? Now, I'm going to give you some ideas now. I'm not expecting anyone to say that they're going to deliver all of those from day one. But I think you could plan to introduce these products and services, and perhaps some others that suit your local clients, over the next 2 to 3 years. Business planning, very important. I did a survey of the crowdsourced funding intermediaries the other day. I've only got a few replies so far, but one of the intermediaries, a very experienced intermediary, has indicated to me that only 40% of the companies that turn up to talk to an intermediary about trying to utilize crowdsourced funding, equity raising to raise capital, have got a business plan. I was amazed at that. Only 40% have got a business plan. So business planning is a very important role. Companies need to be able to document what they're trying to achieve. Budgets and cash flow forecasts and projected balance sheets, the 3-way forecasts, very important. There's software available from various companies, including Plan Guru, that can assist in the formulation of those budgets and cash flow forecasts and projected balance sheets. Business review meetings, at least quarterly. not to discuss taxation issues, but to discuss all aspects of a business. There was a very interesting letter to the editor, I'd call it, in Accountants Daily on the 20th of April this year, which I subsequently found out was written by a consultant, but nevertheless, this particular person wrote an open letter to his accountant and said, I want you to help me run a better business. Tax doesn't really light me up. I'm not really interested in it. It doesn't help me run a better business. I want you to sit down with me to use your skills and knowledge to help me run a better business. Do you think if I contacted some of your clients, I would get the same response? I would really like Jimmy or Mary to help me run a better business, but they seem to be too preoccupied with tax. That's all they ever talk to me about. It doesn't light me up. I'm not interested in it. I pay what they tell me to pay, but I'd really like to know how I can improve my cash flow. I'd really like to know how I can make my business more profitable. And I really do want to do something about succession planning. Where do I start? Or are they going to go off and talk to someone else? I just got into succession planning, so we'll move on. Risk management, an enormous area. Big companies have got teams of people looking after risks. Small businesses also have risks, but who's worried about them? Who's looking at them as issues? Virtually no one until the risks occurred. It's too late then. They didn't insure for it. I participated yesterday. I hope you were one of them. They told me there was 200 people at it on a cyber risk management webinar produced by Thomson Reuters. Very interesting. Have you got in place for your clients cyber security strategies? What about your own firm? Human resources, talent development. What can you do with your clients with this? It might be training the managers and the line managers, foremen within an organization, how to read the profit and loss account that we referred to earlier, that I hope you agree will be prepared or is already being prepared on an individual business unit basis. But do they understand how those accounts are prepared? And do they understand the key performance indicators? Do they understand the reports that can come out of benchmarking analysis? One of the things I found when I was in a public company and we had operations all over the eastern coast of Australia, at times you had to sit down and make sure that the foreman understood what the reports were all about. Because some of them said to me, oh yeah, we see that. We got no idea what it means, Peter. And well, I just throw it away. That's a waste of the resource that's gone into preparing that material. So you could perhaps talk to your client about offering some human resources training, which is talent development for the client. They're getting better managers. How long since you looked at your client's debtor system? What is their debtors days outstanding? I asked someone that 2 days ago, and he couldn't tell me for any of his clients. I said, there you are. You want to know where to start on business advisory services? Have a look at debtors management. And there's some astounding figures around Australia, over 100 days in some businesses for debtors days outstanding. The Prime Minister said that the federal government's got to pay a lot quicker. I hope they are. Government grants. Are you proactive in advising clients of the existence of government grants and how you can assist them to get them? Don't worry, if you subscribe to ESS BIZTOOLS Gold Package, you will have access to our grant finder, which we've developed to assist accountants like you to be able to be an informed advisor to your clients without you having to do the hard work of developing the material and then keeping it up to date, because grants change virtually every day. But then your industry expert, your champion in a particular industry, should know the grants that apply to clients in that industry. And that's not that hard to do. But then they can be far more informed. They're sitting down talking to a client. They know their turnover, or they find out the prospect's turnover. They should be very quick to start pointing out to them, well, you know, we could get you a grant for 20,000 on a 50 basis, which would enable you to undertake that assignment you were just talking to us about. And all this really rolls into being a virtual chief financial officer. Now, this would be the team that's delivering this, and a work program needs to be worked out. So that's why you need to do some strategic planning on this. How are you going to deliver virtual chief financial officer services? I'm going to put onto our website next week links to all the Financial Review articles on the top 100 accounting firms. There's a couple of very interesting comments on how some of those accounting firms have really developed outsourced or virtual chief financial officer services. Why can't you? The fees will vary, of course. Might be as low as $5,000 to $10,000 a year. Others could be 40. In fact, I have a client in the Western Sydney area that tells me their fee is over $140,000 per annum for the supply of chief financial officer services. And these days, you could be sitting in Sydney and have clients in Darwin that you are supplying that service to. Corporate governance, board of directors meeting advice. It's always been important, but I think it's becoming more important now that small businesses and medium-sized enterprises, pardon me, can raise capital from the public. There's an expectation that their quality of corporate governance within an organization should improve. And what advice are you going to be able to give your clients on financing for their business? Things like crowdsourced funding, equity raising. Our material includes a full product package to assist you on that journey. Early stage innovation company capital raising. Are you aware that there's a special company structure for someone who's under 3 years of age, the company's under 3 years of age, who has developed a new product, process, or service? The company doesn't really get much out of it, other than they become very attractive to informed potential investors. And I emphasize the word informed. Are your clients who have got some spare money to invest, or got money in their super funds, looking for investment opportunities, aware of the opportunities they can get from investing in an early stage innovation company? Because they can get a tax offset of 20% of their investment, up to $50,000 investment for a retail investor. And they can potentially avoid capital gains tax on that investment if they hold those shares for longer than 12 months and less than 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, there's a revaluation undertaken. So early stage innovation companies can work both ways. That's you being aware of them to help clients go down that path, or to be able to talk to some investors that you have within your clientele and make them aware that this category exists, and perhaps invite them to a seminar or a webinar where another one of your clients might be doing an investment presentation. Section 708 of the Corporations Act, capital raising. I've been around long enough to know how difficult it was to raise capital before that legislation was introduced 35 years ago. It was very difficult. But now today, we've got the ability to use Section 708, and it's still widely used. Raise up to $2 million from 20 investors in 12 months. And then we got the new one that's about to start, I understand, from reading Josh Frydenberg's news release of about 10 days ago. The Australian Business Growth Fund. The federal government is funding it with banks. The banks have been encouraged to invest $100 million each. So there's $400 million from the major banks, $20 million from a minor bank, and 100 million from the government. That's the start. From newspaper reports I've read there, the government's also talking to the major superannuation funds to also put money into this. And the government's claiming that that new fund, which is going to be run by a private board and obviously employ its own management team, not bankers, is going to invest in 30 to 50 companies per annum that have got turnovers over $2 million and under $50 million per annum. How many of your clients could fit that and might be interested in that? That's an alternative to crowdsourced funding, equity raising. They'll only have one shareholder. And incidentally, the Treasurer is saying this will be a patient investment. So the government fund is just not going to invest in 1 year, expect to get their money back. It's patient investment. I don't really know what they mean by that, but I imagine it's at least an expectation of 5 to 7 year type investment. How would your companies go turning up to make an application to get that type of investment? What role can you play in getting them investment ready? And then we've got scaling up consulting services, which is really the new product package which we're producing for 2020 release. We've already got a lot of the material, but we're making some changes that will be available from around April 2020. This is an attempt to assist clients who want to grow their business. I don't care if they're currently only got a turnover of $300,000. If they say within 3 years they want to have $1 million, or they're currently $2 million and they want to go to $5 million, doesn't really matter. There is a process that I know works, and we're going to work in that, and then we're going to introduce clients that are going through that process to some more advanced scaling up processes run by Andrew Geddes and Anna Somios and Dr. Glenn Richards later in the year. So scaling up consulting, but what can you do in that? Looking at the client's people. Are they properly prepared? The leadership team, strategies for the business, how they implement their strategies, and cash. Where is it coming from? Do you have the vision of being able to comfortably talk to clients about cash and looking at development of 3 to 5 year plans? And what big audacious ideas do you think your clients got? Can they be funded? So launching a business advisory service is very important. I think you should appoint a facilitator or a coach. And there's a few of them around Australia. We accept appointments to act as a facilitator or coach to an accounting firm to get you underway on this process. You've got to select 2 or 3 products, services to get started with. Appoint your champions, both in the product and then in the industries. And then you've got to practice, practice, practice. This is like getting a football team ready. So we think that initial process of going through what I went through as the strategies, that's really our 3-month training program. I would invite you to spend 1 to 2 hours a week having the team together that's basically signed on that they want to be involved in consulting services, using the material which we will supply to take them through the briefing training process. And then part of that at the end is doing some mock interviews, getting someone to act as a bit of a grumpy CEO of a business and have your industry champion for that industry have some conversations with that client to try to convince him or her to sign up to your firm offering some broader services than just taxation. So this is the role-playing consulting services. We've all had to do it. I must admit, those of you who may have worked in other activities rather than straight accounting services at some stage in your career may find this a little bit easier, but you can practice it. Just remember, you've got the professional training. Your accountants have all got the professional training if you're the partner in the firm. But everyone just needs a little bit of encouragement in this area. So the role play is very important because you can perform that in-house, or you can perform it with your facilitator consultant. I've had people all over the place. We do these types of sessions and we record them and send them back so that the person can see what they look like. So you need to identify clients who might be interested in our package. We have a form which will assist you in selecting who might be interested in some of these new services. And then invite them to a seminar or a webinar. Seminars preferably, but no more than 10 separate businesses at a time. I shudder when I hear of people inviting, 100 people. So I think it's far too big. It's too big a room to work. You've got to be a bit like a politician in this environment. They're your clients or your prospects you've invited, but you need to be able to spend some quality time talking to each one of them. So if you've got more than 10 businesses there, that's very difficult, I think. So just have 10. The other reason is I've seen people get embarrassed with too much work coming out of consulting early on. So if you had 100 people there, which might represent, say, 30 businesses, and you got an uptake of 40%, which can occur. So you've now got 12 business plans to prepare. I got 2 on my agenda at present, and that's a bit of a task to keep on top of them. I'd hate to think I was going to have 12. And even in an organization that out of the people, when you're first starting out, if you started with 10 and you did your pitch and you got 40%, you got 4 said yes. Okay, you got 4. That's probably manageable. And then in 2 months' time, once you've got on top of those initial jobs, you could have another seminar for some more clients and so on. Phase it in. Because one of my observations is clients are not as forgiving with accountants when it comes to consulting work, timetables being met, as what they've got used to being with taxation work. It's very important, though, the people you've got to a seminar, and this should be part of your strategies, or you've had them at a webinar, that you follow them up. You ring them up and ask them if you can come around for a cup of tea or coffee and just have a discussion with them. Answer any of their questions about the services you can offer. And some of them might be a bit curious as to how you've converted yourself from being a firm that's only ever done accounts and tax returns to suddenly being able to offer them a wider range of professional advice. And in our training material, we ask you to face up to this. We've got some suggested responses. And one of the important ones, of course, is you've just spent as a team 3 months in training to refresh your memories on various aspects, because you basically learned all this at university or in your CPA or PY processes. But you now need to emphasize to your clients that you're able to deliver. And if the client then says, yes, I'm interested, you then need to promptly prepare the proposal and then go back around to talk to the client, get them satisfied. It's very important that a written proposal, quotation, and a progress payment scheme is put in place for every consulting assignment, I believe. It's what I have done for the last 30 years that I've been doing consulting services. The first 10 years, or maybe a bit longer, were within an accountancy firm. But then for 20 years, we've run ESS BIZTOOLS and a consulting business. We have always given a written proposal, quotation, and progress billing arrangement. And it was the best advice I ever got by an older consultant when we first started doing this sort of work. Let the client know what's involved. Sure, you got to roll with the punches. Sometimes you will lose out on a job. Other times you'll finish a little bit better off. Let's look at professional development. Champions need to keep abreast of what's happening in the industries that you're promoting them as being a champion. So they need to develop knowledge and skills so that they could volunteer to present a seminar to an industry group. In fact, that is one of the key items that should be included in the strategic planning to deliver these services. We're going to do 3 months in training and getting ourselves ready. We're going to start doing some work, but around 6 to 7 months' time, we want to be volunteering, putting our hands up to present commentary, an overview, whatever you want to call it, at the local chapter or branch of the organization that you're the champion for. And that way they will get some use to exposure, public speaking, and the market will start to recognize that person as an expert. And that is crucial, I think, for establishing your reputation in the marketplace as a firm that can deliver business advisory services. So you could write articles on a particular industry to post on your website and social media. Because then what you will find is you will attract other people within that industry. Because a lot of them like the idea that they're going to someone who understands the peculiarities of their industry. Now, those peculiarities might only be 10 to 15% of what happens in that business. But for the guy or lady running that business, that 10 to 15% is very important because that's what probably differentiates them. You'd send news releases to your local media so that they see you as the expert. And then what you will probably find is that the media ring you when there's an issue in that industry to get your viewpoint. It might be a government decision in the budget on that industry. It's great free publicity because the media is showing to the community that you live in, that you operate in, that they consider you the local expert from an accounting, financial management point of view of that industry. And obviously, I think you should be getting people ready to volunteer to speak at industry functions. Make sure that you emphasize to them that you want to hand out business cards, you want to hand out a copy of your speech, your presentation. It is a marketing exercise. And I've just said that. I hope you agree. And it won't take very long before some of your people are considered to be champions. But in all this, there's going to need to be training. So you may have to hire an external coach, trainer, mentor, facilitator, whatever you want to call that term. And at times you might have to encourage little discussion groups with some of the key players in the industry. Could be a couple of your clients in an industry. See if they have a cup of coffee with your champion every 3 or 4 months to give him or her some feedback. And I think it's very important that you attend industry conferences and meetings. Years ago, I was doing a business plan for a real estate agent. And I didn't know he was on the national board. He subsequently become the national president of that particular franchise within real estate agents. And he said to me one day, "We got a meeting on tomorrow. Do you want to come to it?" I said, "A meeting of what?" He said, "Oh, a few real estate agents getting together." So I went to it. There was about 40 of them. And I picked up another 3 business plans. I didn't speak at it. I didn't do anything at it. He just introduced me round. "Hi, this is Peter Towers. He's doing a business plan for me." It's amazing. Because he was well known and he was on the national board, and I hadn't finished his assignment at that stage, I was accepted as being an industry expert. I might add, I learned a lot just by attending that industry conference. There was a keynote speaker there that I would have paid thousands if I'd gone to him on a one-on-one basis to get advice on the real estate industry. I just wrote down everything he talked about in his total presentation, which was over about 2.5 hours. Continual awareness of government grants is also important. So you can talk the talk to them. Say, hey, you know, there's a new grant come out the other day, you might be interested. And encourage your client to ask what if questions, I think is important. Hints, I think you've got to prepare minutes on meetings, action plans out of meetings, and include training program for all of your management personnel on the use of commercial and financial reports. I think one of the big challenges that some accountants are having is that business advisory work is a predictor of future events in most cases. It's not a recorder of past events, which is how the marketplace sees your role in the preparation of annual accounts and tax returns. So ESS BIZTOOLS can assist you. We've developed a complete range of product packages, and we continually update those packages and produce new ones so that you can, as our subscriber, deliver an outstanding range of services. We're going to continue to write that material. Australian Business Growth Fund is our project for 2020, as is scaling up. We produce a monthly newsletter, which is written for our subscribers to badge and send to your clients. And it does ask them to contact you about various aspects. We present monthly webinars for our subscribers, and each month we produce a report for our subscribers, which we call Members Alert. We try to make sure that they haven't missed something that I think is important for them. And we can also assist with coaching and mentoring services, which is an extra service we can provide if you need our assistance in this getting ready to deliver advisory services. You can subscribe for the Gold package, which includes every product and package that we produce, including a subscription to ESS BizGrants. And we've got a big promotion on because tomorrow is Black Friday and Monday is Cyber Monday. So we've got a 33 1/3% discount that applies from tomorrow, the 29th of November, through to Monday, the 2nd of December on all of our products. Go to our website, you'll see the promotional material. And there's a 25% discount, which is actually applying from today also. And then we'll apply for the remainder of next week, Tuesday through to Friday. But the big promotion, the third discount, is on tomorrow, Friday, Black Friday, through until Monday, Cyber Monday, but including the weekend. If you want to go on over the weekend, you can log on. So please visit our websites, www.essbiztools.com.au, where you can click on, go to learn more and have a look at the various product packages, 23 of them. Or you could go to ESS BizGrants, www.essbizgrants.com.au, where you can trial 1 or 2 clients to see how the government program works. And if you need more information, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me, 1-800-232-088. Don't do it straight away. The telephones are diverted at present so that we don't get any interruptions while we're doing a webinar. But if you want to talk to me, please ring me probably in a couple of hours' time now, and I'll be able to talk to you. Because I would like you to take advantage of this 33 1/3% discount. The normal price for our Gold package, including GST, the upfront discounted price, so this is for the payment in advance, is $2,970. With a third discount, that brings it back to just under $2,000. Is your contribution towards your future. Just remember the comments that Steve Vamos has made as to where the accountancy industry is going to go over the next few years. That's not all going to wait for 20 years and suddenly happen. It is progressively going to occur year after year. Every accountant that I talk to tells me that things are changing in your industry. I was in that industry for a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes. You will always have tax return work, I think, for most firms, although I got a client in Melbourne who tells me they want to get to 100% business advisory. They're going to farm out all their tax return work. I don't see that as being the normal process, especially for businesses. But I'd like to see a mix of, say, 60% for accounting tax work, 40% from business advisory services. I think that's what you can achieve. And I think that would give accountancy businesses a very good lifestyle and would give interesting, real accounting work to your team. So thank you for being with us today. I look forward to hearing from you, your feedback as to what you think. And most definitely, we are hoping that everyone that's watching this recording today will be able to contact us and see. Now, I got that wound up that I didn't even check the questions. I haven't got any. So I hope that means that I've answered all your questions. If you think of some questions later on, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Those of you who have joined us on Facebook Live, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Thank you for being with us. I hope 2020 is an outstanding year for your firm. And if this is your beginning on business advisory services, I hope it is very successful for you as an accounting firm, your team, and of course, your clients. Have a great day. Goodbye.